The first time I saw her, she was standing in the middle of a battlefield that had already decided she was dead. Smoke drifted across the shattered plains of Carthos 4, turning the red dust into a hazy veil. Broken machines lay scattered like the bones of extinct giants, their metallic limbs twisted and silent. The war had been raging for months, and by then no one really remembered what it had started over. Territory, pride, survival, it all blurred together when enough blood had soaked the ground. I was there because I was a soldier. A human in a war that humans had never expected to fight. And she was the enemy. Her kind called themselves the Varelians, tall, lithe, and impossibly fast. Their armor wasn't just metal, it was alive in a way, adapting to their movements, shimmering with faint currents of energy that made them look almost untouchable. They had nearly wiped out the first human fleets that encountered them. We learned quickly. We always do. But learning didn't mean winning. Not yet. That day, our unit had been sent to sweep the battlefield for survivors, ours or theirs. It was supposed to be routine. Dangerous, sure, but predictable. Then I saw her. She was standing alone near the wreckage of a downed transport, her armor flickering erratically. One of her arms hung at an unnatural angle, and there was a deep fracture running across her chest plating, pulsing weakly with failing energy. She should have been dead. But she wasn't. And neither was I. Our eyes met across the smoke. For a moment the war stopped. Then she moved. Fast. Even injured, she crossed the distance between us in a blur. I barely had time to raise my rifle before she knocked it aside. The impact sent it skidding across the ground, disappearing into the dust. I drew my sidearm. She caught my wrist. Her grip was like steel, cold, precise, unyielding. For a heartbeat, we froze again, locked in place. I could see her face clearly now beneath the translucent veil of her helmet. Sharp features. Pale, almost luminescent skin. Eyes that burned with something between fury and exhaustion. She could have killed me. I knew it. She knew it too. But instead, she hesitated. And that hesitation saved my life. Because I saw it, the crack in her armor widening, the energy within it flickering dangerously. Her systems were failing. Without thinking, I did something no sane soldier should have done. I lowered my weapon. Her grip tightened, confused. "You're going to die," I said, my voice rough in the static-filled air. "Not from me. From that." Her eyes narrowed. She didn't understand my words, not fully, but tone transcends language. In desperation? That's universal. She shoved me back and staggered slightly, her armor sparking. I could have run. I should have run. Instead, I stepped closer. She raised her good arm, ready to strike. "I'm not here to finish it," I said quietly. "I'm here to fix it." It was a ridiculous thing to say to an enemy. But something in her expression shifted. Just a little. Enough. I don't know why she let me approach. Maybe she was too weak to stop me. Maybe she was curious. Or maybe some part of her recognized the same thing I felt in that moment. The war had taken too much from both of us. Up close, her armor was even more intricate than it looked from a distance. Layers of interlocking plates, threaded with glowing filaments that pulsed like veins. The crack across her chest wasn't just surface damage. It had severed something deeper. A core conduit. No wonder she was failing. I knelt in front of her, slowly, carefully, like approaching a wild animal that could tear me apart at any second. "Don't move," I muttered, more to myself than to her. She didn't understand, but she stayed still. I pulled a small repair kit from my belt. Standard human tech. Not designed for alien systems. This was going to be improvisation. Her eyes followed every movement I made, sharp and untrusting. Good. That meant she was still fighting. I pried open a section of the damaged plating. The moment I did, her entire body tensed. A faint sound escaped her, something between a hiss and a gasp. "Easy," I said instinctively. Inside, the damage was worse than I thought. The energy conduit had fractured, its flow unstable. If it collapsed completely, it would overload her entire suit. And her. I worked quickly. I rerouted what I could, using conductive wire from my kit. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but it might stabilize the flow long enough for her to survive. Every second I expected her to strike. She didn't. Instead, she watched. When I finished, I sealed the plating as best I could and stepped back. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her armor flickered and steadied. The glow returned, faint but stable. She inhaled sharply. Alive. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Well, I said quietly, that should keep you from dying today. She stared at me, long unblinking. Then, slowly, she lowered her arm. The battlefield around us felt very far away. We didn't speak after that. We couldn't. Different languages, different worlds. But something had changed. She didn't attack. And I didn't leave. Not immediately. We stood there in the ruins of a war neither of us truly understood, bound by a moment that shouldn't have existed. Finally, distant explosions reminded us where we were. Her head turned sharply toward the sound. Then back to me. There was a decision in her eyes. She stepped closer. Too close. For a second, I thought I'd made a terrible mistake. Then she reached out. Not to strike, but to touch the repaired section of her armor, then lightly tapped my chest. A gesture. Simple. Clear. Acknowledgement. Then she stepped back, turned, and disappeared into the smoke. Gone. Just like that. I told no one. What was I supposed to say? That I'd repaired the armor of an enemy soldier instead of killing her? That she'd let me live in return? War doesn't have room for stories like that. Or maybe it does. But no one wants to hear them. Days passed. Then weeks. The war dragged on. But something shifted. Encounters with Varelian forces became less brutal. Not peaceful but different. Less like annihilation. More like restraint. Command noticed. No one understood why. I had a theory. But I kept it to myself. I saw her again. Not on a battlefield. On a ridge overlooking one. Our forces were preparing for another push. Tension filled the air like a storm waiting to break. I'd been sent ahead as part of a recon team. That's when I spotted her. Standing alone, silhouetted against the dim sky. Her armor was whole. Repaired. Improved. And unmistakably marked. A faint line where I had patched it. She turned before I could move. Of course she did. Her kind always sensed everything. Our eyes met again. This time there was no attack. No immediate violence. Just recognition. She stepped forward. So did I. Two enemies walking toward each other in the open, while armies waited behind us. Madness. Or something else. When we were close enough, she stopped. Then she did something I didn't expect. She removed her helmet. Slowly. Deliberately. Revealing her face fully. It was trust. In its simplest, most dangerous form. I swallowed. Then, slowly, I lowered my weapon and set it on the ground. Her gaze softened just slightly. She spoke then. I didn't understand the words. But I understood the meaning. Gratitude. Respect. Something more. I answered the only way I could. I didn't do it for the war, I said quietly. I did it because you were dying. She studied me. Then stepped closer. Closer than before. Her hand lifted. Paused. Then rested lightly against my chest. Right over my heart. A mirror of what she had done before. But this time, it meant more. The battle behind us never happened. Orders changed. Retreats were called. Negotiations began. No one said it outright, but something had broken the cycle. A single moment. A single choice. A human fixing the armor of an enemy. An alien choosing not to kill him. That's how it started. Not with treaties. Not with victory. But with understanding. And years later, they would write about the war as if it had ended through strategy, diplomacy, and calculated decisions. They would talk about commanders, councils, and negotiations. They would never mention the battlefield on Carthos 4. They would never mention the moment when a human soldier knelt in front of his enemy and chose to save her instead of finishing the fight. But she remembered, and so did I. We stood together on that same ridge again, no longer as enemies but as something far more complicated. Allies. Symbols. Proof that the galaxy didn't have to burn just because two sides didn't understand each other. Her armor was different now. No longer damaged. No longer failing. But she never removed the faint line where I had repaired it. A scar. A reminder. She once told me through translators, through time, that in her culture, armor wasn't just protection. It was identity. And the moment I fixed hers, I became part of it. I laughed when she said that. She didn't. Instead, she placed her hand over my chest again just like she had that first time. And this time, I understood completely. The war had ended. Not because one side won, but because for one moment two enemies chose not to destroy each other. And everything changed.